Okay, the governing board will come back into session. If everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please remain standing for a moment of silence. You may be seated. Well, Governing Board, this is the one meeting a year that I get to actually start the meeting, and it won't last very long. That's the good news. So, the next item, I was supposed to have Trustee Nellison do the invocation. I skipped right over that. Oh, there you go. Do not make me board president. Oh, that's right, I'm not elected. I can't be board president. Okay, and the next item, Mrs. Ortel. It's not there yet. It's waiting. Okay, it's now time to elect officers. And I will just convene the first one and then turn the gavel over to the new president. So nominations are open at this time for the position of president of the governing board.
I nominate David Nielsen.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for, no, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the Soviet Union. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'll have a motion to close the nominations.
I move nominations be closed.
Second? We have a second, a third, and a fourth. Okay. All those in favor of closing the nomination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now they have to vote. So vote if you would like Mr. Nellison as president of the governing board. There's some hanging chads, I think. Oh, there we. Oh, you didn't. You abstained from voting. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the new governing board president, Mr. David Nellison. Yeah. Okay. All right. And here, but you get to take this.
The power. Okay, we're looking for nominations for vice president.
I would
Anybody?
like to
Joe?
nominate Ed Abunis.
Ed, you have a second?
Your mic wasn't.
A second from Jose or Mr. Arouse. Any other nominations? No? All in favor of closing, or do I have to?
Now you don't have to
You're
do
kind of running it from the. Okay. All in favor? And there's the vote right there.
Oh, come on.
Okay, looks like, Ed, you are the new vice president. Yay.
Thank you. It's moving slowly.
Yeah, it's close. And also, lastly, but not least, is clerk. Do we have any nominations for clerk?
I move that Joan Cooley be clerk.
Any seconds?
She likes to sign papers.
Lots and lots.
I know.
We have a second from Mr. Arouse.
Thank you.
And, okay. Okay, looks like you are the new clerk. Yeah, go right, yeah. All right. Now, Sarah gets the fun part of changing all the titles.
Yeah, just don't move chairs now because she's got that going.
Okay.
But you can decide, board members as a group, but you have to do it in public, if you like this seating arrangement or you want to change it. So the staff will have no recommendation on that.
We can stay for right here.
No, you should right be here.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that next time then. We'll just-
Just stay
I'm sorry.
for now.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, for this meeting.
Okay, we'll keep it the way it is for this meeting, that's fine. Okay.
Are you moving it forward? We didn't. Okay. She's moving it forward for you.
Okay, the County Committee on School District Organization, we need one person to
I
represent us.
nominate Jose Arauz.
We have a nomination.
I think your mic needs to be on.
Yeah. I nominate Jose Arauz.
Dr. Rouse.
All right, Dr. Rouse, would you be willing to sit on the County Committee?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Anybody else want to do it? I don't see any takers really fast, so we need a second for that. I'm sorry. A second for.
Need a second.
You need a s-
Oh, second.
There you go. Joan was the second. All right, go ahead and vote.
Down.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dr. Rouse. County Committee. And now we get to agree on the dates, times of regular meetings. Does
I-
this include the no meeting?
I
in
think we
July?
need to make a motion
You
first.
need,
right?
you need to make
Yeah.
a motion to that.
I move that we approve the dates for the regular board meetings. And
They are now.
That
No.
would mean, let me see if I can make sure that we clarify so everybody understands. So what we're going to say is, because of LCFF or LCAP, the requirements, we'll have 2 board meetings in June and no board meeting in July, if that's okay with the governing board. Is
Yes.
that
Yes.
your proposal?
yeah, that's my proposal. Thank you, Jonathan.
Candace, the regular June date
It's
and
And June
17th.
June 8th at 5 o'clock is what we did last. Well, it wasn't June 8th, but it was the Monday prior. So that'll be a busy week for all of us. We'll have graduation. We'll have the meeting and then 4 graduations.
So in this case, this year it would be June 8th. would be
June
the
8th at
Monday.
5 o'clock. We would like to propose.
that could be a problem for Dr. Rouse with graduation.
No, it's June 6th, our graduation.
Yeah, you got lucky. We got lucky.
You have graduation on a Saturday? You have graduation on a Saturday this year?
No, it's during the weekdays.
June 6th is a Saturday.
Is okay. It was then. I thought it was a Wednesday, June 8th. That's what you said.
No, Monday, June 8th.
Oh, Monday, June 8th. No, it's going to be. No,
Okay,
not a
we're okay.
problem. We're okay. As long
All
as
right,
it's
so-
not on a.
So is the, are you clear, Lori, with what is being,
Monday, June 8th at 5 p.m. and the regular meeting on the third Wednesday, which is June 17th at 4 o'clock, closed session 5 o'clock.
With no meeting
In
July
July, no
15th.
meeting in July.
July 15th. Okay.
there's a lot of staff members out there with anticipation working here at the district office thinking, I can't believe they might do that. So we have a motion and we need a second. So
Yeah, any seconds for his
Second.
change? Okay, Joan, second.
A little slow tonight.
And there are no graduations on the 8th, correct? Okay. Okay, we have an action item. Superintendent as the secretary to the Board of Trustees. Do I have a motion?
So
So move.
Second.
Okay, Joan and Ed. Any questions on this? No? Okay, go ahead and vote. Okay, certification of signatures.
Need a motion for that?
Yeah, do I have a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Second?
Ed and Joan.
Candace, do you have to do, was it 2 reads, 1 read, and then approval?
Do we have anybody have any questions on this? Just verifying signatures? No? Okay. Go ahead and vote. Okay, designation of authorized agent. Do I have any motions?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, I got a 2-horse race here. Anybody need any clarification? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Designation of authorized agent. Oh, no, that was last. Okay. Revision, adoption, ordering of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I second.
There we go. We got somebody else. It was Joan and Jose. Okay. Go ahead and vote. All right. Any report out of closed session?
There is no report out of closed session
Okay.
today, Mr. President.
District update by the superintendent.
Well, I don't know if you know, but we have somebody in the audience who's also a newly elected trustee. We have Mr. Bill Zimmerman, who is the newly elected trustee for the Mount San Jacinto Community College District. Welcome, Mr. Zimmerman. He lives in Menifee and represents a large part of our school district on the college board, and we've had a lot of experiences and opportunities with Mr. Zimmerman. He and I both work on the Boys and Girls Club directors on that, and he's been involved in Arts Council Menifee from the beginning. He's in charge of that, and so very involved in our community, and we're happy that you're here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Want to start off with a little bit of a sad note. Irene Parisi passed away after a long battle with cancer. She'd been in the district 5 years, most recently as doing attendance at Paloma Valley High School. For those of you interested, the viewing will be Friday from 6 to 9 at Evans Brown in Sun City. The memorial service will be on Saturday at 10 o'clock at Temple Baptist Church in Paris. And if we could just have, Mr. President, a moment of silence in Irene's memory. Thank you all very much. Well, I'm going to turn the meeting over real quick to Marcy Savage, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and Diane Martin, who want to talk about the robotics competition that occurred last Sunday. And we had a number of our students from all over the district involved. And ladies, we want to hear all about robotics.
Thank you, Board. Is this on? Thank you, Board President and Board members, Superintendent Greenberg, Cabinet, and the audience behind me, and Diane. I just want to share with you that, and Diane's going to go into detail, we had a wonderfully competitive Sunday with about 84, 85 students, and I'm going to stop there. They went to the First Technology Challenge competition. It was held in, I'm stealing your thunder, so I'm not going to do that. So let me just tell you about First Technology. What First Technology, it stands for FTC. You'll see it throughout, maybe some pictures. It's First Technology Challenge is a robotics competition for high school students, and it's based on really a sports model. It began back in the late 80s. And the teams are responsible for designing and building and programming robots to compete as alliances against other teams. So you can see in the pictures, these were just some candid shots that came in. The teams advanced from local qualifying to state to maybe someday Paris Union High School District, Union High School District will be in a world competition. That would be awesome. The goal is really to inspire young leaders in science, technology, and engineering. And I'm just going to say before I introduce Diane again is Sunday was a day full of competition like crazy. It is my husband calls it the CIF of academics of robotics because it is highly, highly competitive. Parents are involved, cueing their students, their own children. But the real thing that became so evident Sunday was it's a competition craziness with a lot of kindness and respect for one another. Tremendous leadership. And we had I'll let Diane share, but I just have to, I just want to say the teachers who have dedicated their time, the extra time, getting up at 5, getting those kids on a bus till sometimes 8, 10 o'clock at night, are just phenomenal. We are so, so lucky to have such dedicated staff who work Saturdays, Sundays, Monday nights, all nights, with our students to help bring this about. So it's a wonderful experience. And with that, I'm going to introduce really the founder of robotics in our program, in our district. She really is a founder. Diane, about 3 years ago, fell upon robotics, and she's taken it from just a one little club-like setting to a district-wide program. And I just want all of you to just join with me in giving her a great big round of applause. You're going to talk about this in January?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Then I will leave those with you. Okay?
So I would like to give a special shout out to Stacy McPherson, Richard Santana, Michael Wilson. Those were the 3 teachers that joined us on Sunday, and it was a long day. I mean, they got up at 5 o'clock, and I don't think we got home until about 8. And then Marcy and I are now dubbed the team moms of robotics because we do all of the preparation and planning for the kids so that they have an enjoyable experience. But we had 6 of our 13 teams this year compete in the first qualifying tournament in Monrovia at the high school. And so you're seeing a lot of the pictures of the kids and their robots and some fun activities in between. So as Marcy said, it is highly competitive, but it's really built around a team environment. It's just not one person that controls the whole setting. It really is a team effort. So we had 6 of our teams. We had CMI represented, we had Heritage represented, and Paloma as well. And we were lucky enough of the 6 teams that 3 of them placed and were awarded some. The Judges Award was for CMI, their team, the Assemblers, and the Judges Award was given to them because they had to overcome some challenges. Their parts order didn't come in on time, so they had to improvise and be able to compete on that day. So between nuts and bolts and zip ties and duct tape, they were able to put their robot together and compete, and actually was awarded the Judges Award. So we were very proud of them in their efforts as well. They were also part of the First Alliance team. So there was 3 teams that were selected. The first place team of the whole robotics tournament selected the assemblers from CMI to be partners with them to be able to move on to the next qualifying round. So they were recognized for their efforts as well. We also had Gear Gurus from Heritage High School, who was awarded the PTC design, and that award was basically being able to align their robot with basically industry design, using components that they would find out in industry. So of our 6 teams, we had 3 receive awards. So we were very excited to be well represented. And it was very exciting. So with that, January 10th and 11th, and we'll share, Marcy will pass these out, we are hosting for the 2nd annual FTC Championship at Paris High School. So we want to thank Paris High admin and their staff and Art and all of those people who are going to be involved with preparing and planning that event. Will be on Saturday and Sunday, so we'll have approximately about 25 to 28 teams from all over competing on those 2 days. We're going to have all of our 13 teams competing on both days. So we would encourage and invite you to come out and join us. It really is very exciting. If you have grandchildren, children, adults of all ages, can find some great time watching the kids compete. And it is just a wonderful time to come out on that Saturday and Sunday. So with that, are there any questions? All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, as everybody knows, the football season's over, and Heritage made it to the semifinals. Paloma had another great season. Paris High won 6 games, and Rancho Verde, we have great, they're on the other side, but they're in Paris as well. No championships in Paris except for one. Here it is on the front page of the Paris Progress. Pinacati Middle School won the middle school football championship. We're very proud. I was also going to say that USC and UCLA didn't win any championships either, but I decided to leave that off. Okay, I want everyone to know that we have a couple of seniors at Paris High School who got scholarships. This came from Kathy Hakala, who does our wonderful food program over there, Culinary Arts. Senior David Reyes has been accepted to Johnson & Wales University, baking and pastry major at Denver, Colorado, with a $20,000 Skills USA scholarship. And senior Bernardo Hernandez has been accepted to that same school, Johnson & Wales University, baking and pastry major, and with a $32,000 Skills USA scholarship. So we talk about kids and being successful in a whole lot of endeavors, but here are some under the radar screen. We have some great programs in the district, and I wanted to highlight those two. Let's have a nice round of applause for those two students. I want you to know that Marcy and I last Friday night had the joy of attending the holiday concert at Pinacati Middle School. They have 2 bands. They had a dance program, and they had the Vicki Mueller's art was on the board as well out in the hallways, and it was just a great experience. And want to make sure to thank Shamika McKenzie, who does the dance program, Lori Cardos, who's in charge of the band. She did a great job. Of course, again, Ms. Mueller and the art program. And our student technical team there led by Mr. Morgan and Jonathan Sinnott. And it was about an hour. It was in the new multipurpose room, and it got us all into the spirit. And I have to tell you, Mr. Morgan, if this doesn't work out as a principal, he could be like a master of ceremonies. He ran a great program. You did a great job. It's okay. We're keeping you as principal. I also want to congratulate Art Fritz. We were notified by the Riverside County Office of Education on our Williams Act facility inspection. We were exemplary at Paris High School with a 99.63% rate, and Pinacati Middle School 99.54%. And so, Mr. Fritz, wherever you are, where are you, Mr. Fritz? Are you standing up? Please make sure you share with your team, the maintenance team, that we really appreciate those. Pinacati's becoming a new old school. Paris High is still an old school that we're trying to rebuild, and so it takes a lot of effort on the part of your team to do that. So please make sure you share our congratulations. Thank you very much. On Thursday last week, December 4th, we had professional development for counselors. We always do professional development. We try to expand it out for as many teachers as possible and our classified employees and our administrators, but this one was strictly for counselors, put on by Riverside County Office of Education. And the purpose is to refocus the work of counselors, because in the 21st century, counselors have to be concerned not just about graduation, not just about making sure kids are in the right classes, but they have to also make sure that A through G completion rate goes up. We're going to be evaluated on that as a school district, doing focused work with students who are struggling, making sure that before the semester's over, we take a look at those kids who are getting D's and F's and do whatever we can to help them over the hump. And so the world of counseling is changing like everything else, and it needs to be driven by data. And so I really want to thank our counselors for giving up a day, because they have a busy schedule and getting that done. As you know, we were the first district in Riverside County, and I think in the state, to go one-to-one with Chromebooks last year. And I was reading, Mr. Agundez knows that as superintendent, you get a lot of magazines for district office administration. And I came across a district in Michigan that they talked about in this article, scaling up to one-to-one. And I just thought they had some interesting quotes in the article. One was, professional development was key to the success of the one-to-one initiative. Chromebooks were given to teachers early so they could familiarize themselves with the device, and training was provided over the summer on an ongoing basis. And I know Joe Williams and his team have done a lot of that and continue to do that. Today they say their district is one-to-one with Samsung Chromebooks for students in grades 7 through 12. While it's too early to gauge the long-term impact of the program in terms of student achievement, this person said that the impact on student and staff engagement has been overwhelmingly positive. And here's a quote that I just think really typifies what we're talking about. This new age of technology requires all stakeholders to think differently. We must be aware that in today's world, technology is where students live. We must be part of this world so we can impact them at the level they understand. And I want to wish everybody in the room happy holidays. Have a great new year. And we're coming to the end of the semester, so the students are looking at me like, hurry up so we can do the student representative reports and I can go home and study for finals. But anyway, I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. And that'll complete my report for this evening, Mr. Nelson.
Okay, thank you. Okay, student representatives to the Board of Trustees. Trustee Cooley.
From Heritage High School, Representative Anthony Hubazon and Natalie Bowen. Did I get that incorrect? Sorry.
Good evening, board members and trustees. My name is Anthony. I'm a senior at Heritage.
Natalie.
So we had round 3 of CIF playoffs for football. Unfortunately, we lost. It was sad for everybody. But for me, I went and I loved the game. I just loved seeing everyone out there. We also want to congratulate all the seniors, and especially our 4 senior captains. They put their lives there. They loved it, and they were really looking forward to the ring. But they're happy they got this far.
We also had Sadie's. The theme was dancing through the decades. We didn't have such a huge turnout, but it was still fun. The best part was, without a doubt, the pep rally. We had the dance to perform Polynesian Night Fusion, along with the flash mob done by ASB. It was tons of fun.
Yesterday and today, our Link Crew program is hosting a Cocoa and Cram session, which is just tutoring for all the freshmen. And we even opened it up for upperclassmen too to join us because we all need studying for our finals. It was really cool seeing everyone there. We had hot cocoa, marshmallows, and even Link Crew members were there to help people study.
And we'd like to thank you guys for approving our CATA trip. We enjoyed the trip and learning all the things they taught us. We really enjoyed staying at the Disneyland Resort. We learned a lot in those 2 days, and we can't wait to apply them to our school.
Our Plus team is holding their 12 Days of Kindness up from now up until the last day of our first semester. Today, we did a Teacher Appreciation Day where they went around and they gave all the teachers a balloon with a note that said, "You uplift us." Last week, they went around and they gave students little lollipops, and on the lollipops they wrote, "The school would suck without you." It was really fun stuff, and we can't wait to see what else they do. They always surprise us every day. We also want to congratulate our student of the month, Martin Cuenca. He's a close friend of mine, and he's really cool. He really deserved it. The teacher of the month is Miss Alicia Arouse. I actually had her as my sophomore year Spanish 2 class.
Yes, she's here.
Stand up, Mrs. Arouse.
She really deserved to be teacher of the month. She's a really great teacher. And our classified staff of the month is Miss Claudia Cruz and Yuli Stowell. I do the morning announcements at Heritage, so I work closely with Miss Claudia, and she's really fun. And she always makes my day always starts off with a smile. She always tells me a little joke. Other than that, I just have, like, it's really been an honor for me as a senior to come here and do this. This is my first year in ASB, and as nervous as I get, it's really fun. And I can't wait. Everything we learned at the CATA trip that we had, I can't wait to really put it into second semester. But not just for our ASB class, but also for the school. I'm noticing now we're at a little kind of like a mid-year slump. So second semester, we're going to be putting in new stuff, and I can't wait. We have a few tricks up our sleeve that we're hoping to bring student happiness back to the campus. They're really stressed about finals right now. But other than that, that's it for Heritage. I want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to tell you guys about Heritage. Have a great night, and happy holidays.
Dear Anthony and Natalie, and Trustee Arouse.
Let's welcome Michaela Lee, student rep from Paloma Valley High School.
Hello, I'm Michaela Lee from Paloma Valley High School, and I am a junior there. So the first is this. Oh, the clicker. Okay, wait, this red button? No, which button? This one. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is Brenda Arenas, and she's the new secretary in counseling to the assistant principal. This is the classified employee of the year, Carolyn Smelser, who's the discipline secretary. This is the rookie classified employee of the year, Luis Robles, who's a campus supervisor and coach. Certified staff of the year is Katie Bradley, who's a PE teacher. And rookie certified staff of the year is Master Sergeant Frank Puebla for NJROTC. So Menifee, we had a tree lighting ceremony, and those are the pictures from the ceremony. That's more pictures. Jazz Band did a performance at the tree lighting ceremony. The Key Club Food Bank, we were able to raise 1,100 pounds of food, so that was a really great turnout. Claire Garland, who is the third from the right, she is the student of the month. We had a positive behavior assembly, and from 99.1, the morning show, Diane Wiebe came, and she just talked to us about her struggles and gave just like a pep talk to all the students on how to live positively in a world full of, difficulties. So it was a really great assembly. And Cheer had a winter showcase, and they just showed their performances, and there was song and the person in charge of Cheer is Miss Labas. And CATA, I heard it was great. I'm not an ASB, but I heard that the CATA trip was a really great trip, and that all of the students had a great time learning about leadership and all of those things, and they're really excited for the next CATA. NJROTC, this was a really great turnout. They brought home 11 trophies. There were 11 events. We had 2 third places, 4 second places, 4 first places, and only 1 challenge was not placed, and there was a handful of individual medals. So Paloma did a great job. Grad night, all the seniors went and they got their caps and gowns, ordered caps and gowns, and they ordered class rings, and they took their pictures, and a lot of people had a great time at the grad night. Girls basketball, I think they had a game. I don't have much notes on the girls basketball, but for starters, our season it's starting off pretty great. I'm looking forward to the season. I'm going to go to some of the games. Battle of the Hands. So this was on Friday, December 5th at Murrieta Mesa High School, and Paloma took first place in poetry and comedy and second place in the overall behind Great Oak. Yes. Matt Thomas, who's an English teacher, he's going to be inducted into the National Martial Arts Hall of Fame in Seattle over break. And he's just such a nice teacher. I did not expect that at all. That he's like a kung fu master. It's like, oh my goodness. Girls soccer. They placed second in the Beaumont's Classic tourney. I think that's supposed to be tournament. Yes. Tourney? Yeah. Okay. Holiday Spectacular is this Friday night at 6 p.m. in the theater, and it'll feature jazz band, short scene from the drama class, and dance. So it'd be great for you guys to show up. And that's the. I also have. There was a World Dance Concert. There's no pictures there, but basically what it was, the dance program put on a show where they featured different dances from all over the world. So Polynesian dance did a couple of dances. There was dances from Spain, just a different variety of dances from all over the world that were showcased there, and also different foods and stuff. It was a pretty cool experience, and. The boys wrestling had a competition against some of the best teams in the state. And boys soccer beat Arlington on Friday. So that is what has been going on for Paloma for the past month. And also next week there's auditions for the Shrek musical. So a lot of kids in the school are going to audition for that. So that's something else. Well, that's it.
Excellent.
Thank you, Michaela. Trustee Twyman.
From Paris High School. Where am I? Melissa? Oh, dear. Melissa Vasquez and Melissa Lenoris and...
Ashley X.
What?
Ashley X.
Oh, Ashley, I'm sorry. Ashley Jackson.
Okay. Hello and good evening. Good evening, President Nelson. Welcome. And board members, Superintendent Greenberg, and Cabinet. I'm Major Ashley Jackson, and I'm Major Ashley Jackson, Parasites ROTC. Along with me is ASB member Melissa Vasquez. Okay.
Robotics Parasite will be hosting hosting the FTC Robotics Tournament on January 10th and 11th. Last year, it was the largest tournament in the Inland Empire region. Band. The Parasite Band will be having their annual holiday concert this Friday, December 12th, in the MPR at 7 p.m. The concert will feature PHS Marching Panthers, PHS Concert Band, Color Guard, and Drumline. We'd like to invite you guys to come out and support us. Drama is currently hosting auditions for the spring musical Footloose. It looks to be an entertaining show.
And ROTC just recently competed in the Canyon Springs High School. It's when we compete against other battalions here in the county. Cadet Tanya Laredo took first place in our cross-country race, and we were really proud of that. Our battalion commander took second place, Carlos Ceja, and the Army ROTC basketball took second place in the basketball tournament. So it was a good night for ROTC. ASB has been very busy this month. We also attended CATA like the other high schools, the California Association of Directors activities, 50 members strong, where we attended various workshops. Some of the workshops were Why Characters Counts, Dance Away, Take the Lead of Your Life, Be the One, and Oh No You Didn't. The cards were given to us at CATA. I went myself. And they were just like little price tags, like monies from the Monopoly game. And the workshops just help us learn about and how to take skills back to our school. Also, ASB just threw our winter rally this past Friday to honor winter sports as well as highlight the winter formal and its royalty candidates. a big thanks to Dr. Greenberg for attending and coming out and watching Paris High and all its spirited craziness. Speaking of Winter Formal, it will also take place Friday, December 19th at the Riverside Convention Center in downtown Riverside during the Festival of Lights. So it's another perk to our students coming out and watching. Like Mr. Greenberg stated earlier today, two students got our senior culinary students, David Reyes and Brandon Hernandez. They have both been accepted into the Johnson Wales University at Denver, Colorado, like you stated. And they're both really excited about the scholarship that they're given because that's all they've been talking about for the past week, that I got this and I'm so excited. So it's really good to see everyone really motivated at this time of the year. And another significant event that happened on December 8th was the Hour of Code. And we have two more students here to talk more about it, and that is Shavonde Green, that is Math Club's vice president, and Sarah Velasco, the coding guru. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Shavonde Green. I'm Vice President of Math Club.
I'm Sarah Velasco. I'm the coding guru of Math Club.
This article from the Press Enterprise was giving us telling us about the Hour of Code. Math Club was very excited for the coverage of our school in this participation of this event.
The Math Club students had a codathon with on a Friday from 3 to 6, so we can know how to help students with coding that we did on Monday after school.
Throughout the day, a lot of the teachers participated in this event. For example, I coded for 3 hours on Monday.
I also coded for 3 hours.
I don't want to interrupt, but can you briefly explain to the audience and the board and the cabinet what coding is? Can you briefly describe it?
Coding is pretty much making a line of pretty much action or function that you'll do for the computer or making an app. Say, for instance, if you're playing Flappy Bird, when you tap on the screen, it makes the bird go up, and that's a line of code that we're making.
Well, this is the Hour of Code event that we had, which we had over 100 students participate.
Mr. Ryan Hayes brought a group of students to the gym who showcased coding through Arduinos. They programmed LED lights to flash in patterns. Arduinos are circuit boards that help transmit different codes to the LED lights so they'll work properly and they'll go on.
Many students already did coding exercises in their class during the day. Therefore, the gurus didn't have much to do, which is also a good thing.
Some of the teachers, like Mr. Corona and Ms. Osuna, also helped facilitate the event. So they kept everything in order and make sure everyone, if they needed help, they'll call one of the gurus over so they can, help them out. Also, Think Together helped give snacks to the students that participate in the event because usually everyone's hungry after school and everyone needs a good little refreshing popcorn. We would like to thank Ms. Choi, our Math Club advisor, Ms. Osuna, Mr. Hayes, and Mr. Corona for helping us with this event. Without their help, it probably would have been a disaster. Also, we would like to thank Mr. Chad Shaner for organizing the event. He really sent out a lot of emails to all the students, got them very involved into it, and without him, it probably would have been harder to get the word out.
This is two participants and what they had to say about the Hour of Code.
And this is our math class secretary who made the PowerPoint and also took the pictures that you guys saw today. He is very passionate about photography, so helping him out was a really good thing for us to do. We thank you for your time, and we hope that you have a good evening.
Thank you.
Students. Why don't you invite Mrs. or Miss Choi up here? I think Dr. Greenberg and the board maybe need a little bit in the public about Hour of Code. Oh, this is worldwide. This is an impressive thing.
Yes. This week is Computer Science Week. And so this is an international event where all the schools, well, not all, but a lot of the schools are participating. I can tell you that according to, I hope this is the correct number, 34 million students or people have participated. And if you go into Microsoft offices, I mean, those companies where they sell Microsoft products, they actually hosted an Hour of Code in there as well, teaching adults. This is a very serious thing, and there are many people in our school district who's very passionate about pushing computer science forward and having courses available at our school district, because the truth is that right now there's not that many schools and universities that are teaching computer science courses to our students. But when you get out of high school and colleges, there are so many jobs out there that our students can get and change our future if only we provided them classes at our schools. And so this Hour of Code, the reason why we participated in this, the reason why we're doing this, and the reason why we're going to have computer science courses at our school district is because we want to better equip our students for the future. And so we want to expose them and help them understand that this is very easy and get them excited and go out to that field so they could get that job.
As you can see, Princess is not very excited about this.
Remember, I grew up with smoke signals. I grew up with smoke signals, literally.
Oh. You have to start somewhere.
I think you need to pep it up a little bit.
Thank you very much, Princess.
Thank you. Trustee Agundez.
From Pinacate Middle School, student rep Omar Elizonda and Melissa Linares and Renee Murillo.
Good evening, President Nelson, members of the board, Dr. Greenberg, members of the cabinet. I am Omar Elizondo, Pinacote's ASB president, and here with me tonight are Melissa Linares, Pinacote's ASB vice president, and Renee Murillo, Pinacote's ASB secretary. Thanks for having us here so we can report on all of the wonderful things happening at Pinacate. The week before Thanksgiving was Anti-Bullying Week. We would like to thank Ms. Mueller and Club Life for organizing activities and Spirit Days. We also want to thank all of the teachers who showed the anti-bullying videos. Thanks to all of our staff members for all they do to raise awareness and to help stop bullying during Bullying Week. We talked about different types of bullying, like passive forms of bullying and cyberbullying, and what to do if you are a victim of bullying. Their efforts make a difference in our lives. Overall, we feel safer when we discuss these important topics. Thank you. We would like to thank all of our staff and students who contributed to the Pinacote's ASB annual canned food drive. We had several hundred items donated, and these were used to make gift baskets for families in need in our community. We also would like to say special thanks to our community liaison, Grace Farazad, and our parent volunteers for helping make the basket. We appreciate all those who contributed to help families in need in our community. And now Renee with more highlights.
On Friday, November 21st, we had our first ever school-wide assembly with all 1,200 of our students. Special thanks goes to ASB, technology production class, dance, band, girls volleyball, and the boys tackle football and flag football. Our students did a great job preparing and running the show under the directions of Miss Cardos, Daniel Morgan, Coach Al, Miss McKenzie, Coach Jones, and Coach Meyer. We especially want to recognize all of them for their effort to plan and coordinate such a wonderful event. We also want to express our gratitude to Mr. Rodriguez and the Paris High ASB cheerleaders, the dance team members, and the athletes for their help and participation. Overall, it was a fantastic event that has raised schools' pride and spirit, and also help our students become more aware of what it means to stay connected and involved while working toward becoming college and career ready. This Friday, our 7th grade ASB students will put on a rally to pump up the students and send them off to their final week of school. And here's Melissa with the details of our Winter Art Festival.
Winter Arts Festival on Friday, December 5th. The NPR was packed with parents and family members who came to watch the student performances and productions during Pinacardi's annual Winter Arts Festival. Miss Shamika McKenzie and our very spirited Puma Dance Squad performed 2 wonderful routines. Mr. Daniel Morgan's Tech Renaissance class presented students created videos, productions in the technology production class had 4 students working backstage who handled all of the audio video tasks for the evening. Both the beginning and advanced bands performed as well. They both did a great job. It's wonderful to see how much progress both bands have made, considering that almost all of our Puma band members have never even touched an instrument until they walked into Mrs. Cardle's band class. Mr. Jonathan Sinnett's journalism students were there to document the event. We are looking forward to seeing their take on the evening in the next edition of the Puma Press. This evening concluded with the attending strolling past the artwork displayed by Mrs. Mueller's art class and art club, which adorned the hallways around the media center. All in all, it was an entertaining and uplifting event that showcased our talent, Pumas being their best. We have had an amazing semester. We look forward to seeing you in We can't wait for second semester. We know it's going to be even better. Thank you for listening and have a great evening and enjoy your holidays.
Thank you. From Paris Lake High School, student representatives Austin Johnson and Daniel Nunez.
Good evening, Board and Cabinet. My name is Daniel Nunez. I am president of Paris Lake High School ASB.
I'm Austin Johnson. I'm a senior, and I'm representing Paris Lake High School ASB.
Even though our month has been cut in half, we've had an exciting and packed month starting for the holidays. At the beginning of the month, we managed to fill up, with just a small school of around 300 students, we managed to fill up 6 boxes to help the needy families this holidays. With opening the student store on campus, we've opened the student store on campus, which opens for 30 minutes at lunch. During lunch, it's been very successful in selling tasty, healthy snacks. Then moving on to scheduled activities for this month. We have a student-formed basketball tournament going on. The winning team gets pizza party. Spirit Week will also be coming up for the kids to get the kids motivated. Since we don't have finals in the month of December, we decided to choose a wide variety of things to do. We have about 2 activities per day on that week. It's starting on the December 15th, going to December 18th when we get out. We have candygrams going on sale, for example. Then we have something like a door decorating contest, which the winning team for that will also get a pizza party. Then our last planned event of the month is our sign up for senior pictures. It'll be $50 and it'll be on a CD which students can take and they can print as many times as they want.
I would like to congratulate our student and staff of the month. Our student of the month is Sabrina Adame. Our Facebook page showed that she had a good time and was very happy to receive her award. Our certificated employee of the month is Brenda Watkins. Our certified staff of the month is Sean Goffman. He has helped us so much around the campus with his projects including putting in new cabinets in Mr. Miller's science lab. He also helped us on cutting out the holiday billboards. With the help of Sean Goffman, we've managed to repaint all the benches and make repairs to the benches around campus. We also have put up new picnic tables and around our campus to make the campus more presentable.
With our trimester system in position, we managed to get 94 potential graduates this trimester to be graduating in March. That is 4 months early of getting them out into the real world.
Thank you, gentlemen. Trustee Cooley.
I would like to introduce Valerie McDaniel from the Academy.
I'm afraid Valerie isn't here today. My name is Joseph Margon. Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Greenberg, members of the school board, cabinet. I'm Joseph Margon. I am representing the Academy. I would like to share some of our recent events. In October, we observed Red Ribbon Week. Friday Night Live invited Eddie Chugoli, a former gang member, to share his story about drugs and how it affected him. He inspired us to make conscious life choices. During the week, we pledged to keep our hands off drugs and commit to being drug-free. Dr. Garcia began a mentoring program for students. We have members of the school district who agreed to meet and mentor us. In November, we had a canned food drive for those in need. All of the students participated, which allowed us to collect 8 boxes of cans for St. James Outreach Ministry. Also on November 19th, some of our students were able to attend the 13th annual Dare to be Aware Youth Conference at the Riverside Convention Center. It was a day to meet students from all over Riverside County and listen to speakers on a variety of topics, including anti-bullying, human trafficking, and the best topic of all was creating a culture of kindness. We have had a few awards assemblies this semester. We have been honoring the students who have obtained good GPAs, attendance, and censorship. We were provided pizza, luncheons, awards, certificates, and a barbecue to inspire our students to work hard. 3 students with perfect attendance received skateboards for their continued excellence. After these incidents where added attendance is increasing, we have had a very productive system. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share our news. Are there any questions? Have a good evening.
Thank you for that. Trustee Arauz.
I'd like to introduce the CMI student rep, Cadet Major Miguel Lopez. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Oops. Good evening, President Nelson, Dr. Greenberg, and members of the board. My name is Cadet Major Lopez, and I'll be representing CMI today. The theme, not the actual theme that we set out, but from what I've seen in the month so far, I feel that the theme for this month is improvise, adapt, and overcome. As we've seen, as Ms. Martin mentioned with the robotics competition, us winning the Judges Award on December 7th, that showed the improvise, adapt, and overcome attitude that a lot of CMI students have. So great job. Also on December 5th, we had our Christmas tree lighting, which is a really huge event that's really popular at our school. Everyone knows about it. A lot of people want to try to get into it, and it's something that's really exciting for our cadets. We also started off the month as victors, improvising, adapting, and overcoming at the drill competition on December 6th. We got 7 awards that day. We took first place arm tap out, first place armed exhibition, first place unarmed regulation, second place armed inspection, third place armed tap out, third place color guard, and third place armed regulation. So our drill team is really on it. They've been working extremely hard. We have a dedicated 7th period drill class for the members of the drill team that are able to attend it, and I'm right next to them, so I see them spinning rifles every afternoon, practicing color guard, and you can tell that our team is extremely dedicated. Also, there are wizards on the campus of CMI, because yesterday, over 1,000 students logged on their Chromebook simultaneously to participate in the Hour of Code, and we had 0 IT glitches, we had 0 technical issues, which is great job, which is extra. Let's give them a round of applause. All right. That, which was really amazing. CMI has actually had a small experience with coding last year as Mr. Holtman's pre-calculus class participated in programming for an entire month along with, well, I think it was all the pre-calculus classes. We did programming for a month, and so we had already a little bit of exposure to this coding. So this Hour of Code that opened up to our entire school and the entire nation was actually really exciting because, as was mentioned earlier, a lot of the jobs and the jobs of the future and the future in general relies on programming and computers. So that's something that's really important to our youth. So I'm really glad that our school district participated in it, and I'm really glad that our nation also did too. Tomorrow, our regiment band is going to perform a concert, so everyone's free to come. Our band, along with our drill team, along with a lot of the teams at CMI, pretty much everybody, we have a really hardworking attitude, so please come and support our regiment band. They've been practicing very hard for this concert. And also, familiar words, pass and review, December 12th. There is 100% chance of rain that day, which is the very first time. This is the very first time that this has ever happened all my 6 years here at CMI. So, in the spirit of improvise, adapt, and overcome, we have modified our pass and review script to be held indoors with only the head leadership in charge. So this is something completely brand new to me, to everybody at our school, and we've been planning this extensively, and we hope that this pass and review is going to be just as great as all the other ones.
You know, it could be 110 degrees. Usually it's 110 when you do your pass and review, so I think rain's probably a little bit better.
I'm very excited. Also, December 13th, our marksmanship team is going to participate in the Army National Air Rifle Championships. So we're hoping to score some more awards that day. And also, our school is going to be participating in the Christmas parade, which is always a really fun event. Now, something that I don't usually talk about because I didn't have the information before, but this month, sports. Sports is awesome. So on December 3rd and 4th, baseball tryouts at our school ended, and so our baseball team is finalized, and now we're shooting for our 4th CIF entry. So our baseball team is going to be really dedicated to that too. And usually, as I've mentioned before, and as I've done throughout this whole thing, I love mentioning our success, but CMI isn't impenetrable. We're not perfect, and I want to congratulate Paris High today for beating our girls soccer team on December 8th from a score 7-0. So congratulations to Paris High today. We'll get you next time. Also, December 9th, our basketball teams, both girls and boys, defeated Public Safety Academy. So good job, Rough Riders. For this month, our teachers of the month for middle school, our teacher of the month for middle school, Miss Bina, and our teacher of the month for high school, Miss Abilia. These are two very dedicated teachers. Miss Bina has a lot of middle school after-school programs, such as a reading club and a lot of literature things. Miss Abilia is in charge of our ASB department, so these two teachers have put in a lot of work for CMI, and they definitely deserve being recognized today, or this month, as Teachers of the Month. Our classified employee of the month, Mr. Smith. He's one of our technology wizards on campus. So he's a guidance tech, and he also, I see him everywhere around campus, solving technical issues. He's very hardworking. I always see him on his feet, which is really awesome. So congratulations to Mr. Smith. And our student of the month, another student who symbolizes our attitude of improvise, adapt, and overcome, Elizabeth Talavera. I've personally known her since 7th grade. We've been in this school for 6 years, and she's always been better at history than me, so she definitely deserves this award. She's very hardworking, and she's a great example of CMI for this month. So congratulations to Elizabeth Talavera. And that will conclude my announcements for today. Thank you very much for letting me represent our school today. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Cadet Major. Okay, any students who are here to present, you guys may leave now if you'd like. If you need to go study for finals or anything else of that nature, you may take this opportunity to go.
You guys are really good.
Thank you, all of you for coming.
Great job. Great job. Really good. Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
I'd rather do a dissertation.
The coding.
Okay. PSEA President Paul Clay.
Good evening once again, Board. Thank you for this opportunity.
Good evening.
I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. I'm not feeling the best again. I'm a little under the weather, so I'll try to make this a little quicker than normal. I do want to and congratulate the two trustees for recent victories in the races.
Thank you.
That helps. Although my students say I don't seem to need a microphone, so. I do also welcome the diversity that we're seeing on the board now. As I've brought several times the issue about issues of diversity in among our employees and among our administration as well. And I hope to continue to see an increase in administrators and employees of a diverse background. Instead of going into great details on a lot of these things, I do want to address a couple of issues that we as a union and individuals in our union are looking at. One of the problems we have is with A+. It still continues to lack the rigor and lacks support for students who are in the program. So for instance, when I was teaching A+, and any teacher does this, if the student is in my area, which is social studies, I can help them out. If they're taking science, there's nothing I can do to help them. There's really no practical way that they can get help. They also don't typically have a textbook of any kind, so they don't have a reference to go back to. It makes it difficult for them to actually study. And some of the classes they actually manage to complete within a week. And it's hard to imagine that a semester-long class can actually be completed in a week. Many of my kids have stated to me that they'll just fail now. And when I say my kids, I'm talking about my students, by the way. I call them my kids a lot. I think we all do. But they'll fail now and then take it an A+ and get a better grade. It results in grade inflation. It results in low achievement in the classroom, which is a struggle for many of us, especially the social studies teachers do seem to be complaining about that a lot. As far as Williams Act, we still have a shortage of books, and we also have a shortage of current books. Many of our books are out of date. Certainly the world has changed since my world history and U.S. history books have been printed. A geography book was old when I got here, and it's still the same book. So those are quite aged. But the department that really has a very severe problem with this is mathematics. Several of the classes, owing to the Common Core changes, don't have a textbook of any kind at all. And as well, there have been changes in what Common Core requirements seem to have been, and so they've been making changes to the curriculum since the original curriculum was redesigned to accommodate Common Core. So there's confusion and some duplication of effort, some areas of mathematics that are being overlooked and not taken care of. The math teachers are very frustrated as well. Morale continues to be a very good situation at two of our schools, at Paris High School and Paris Lake High School. I'm still, when I walk on campus and I see people, for instance, at Paris Lake this last week, decorating the campus, a great atmosphere, very positive feedback from the students, from the teachers. And Paris High School, last week I was there, and similar circumstances. Again, you can see that there's an extremely positive movement in those schools. As a departure from what I was seeing last year, we do continue to have some severe morale problems at Heritage High School and at Community Day School. One of our teachers at Community Day School did, of course, I'm sure you're aware of this, resign recently. This was in part due to his frustrations at the school. He elected to find a job in another state. We do continue to have other members there who are voicing issues to me about the problems that they have at the site. Special education still seems to have innumerable problems. We've had several talks with different administrators over the past years about this. But for instance, several of our members were required by their administration to arrive 15 minutes early and stay 15 minutes late in order to accommodate the student on the buses, but to do this without pay. And that has led to several problems. So, we have at least 4 teachers, I believe 4 teachers, maybe more, but I think it's just 4, who have been, really essentially been told to be there a half an hour more a day than any other teacher, and that's just not right. They should be compensated for this. There are several other problems. I really hesitate to even get further into it because it's very deep. I mean, we have many issues that the board, the district is addressing. There are still some other problems as well. And I'm also kind of alarmed at the recent, what I recently found out about the increase in consultants for the district. The cost seems to be going higher, and that's really what my concern is that we seem to be spending much more on consultants when, in fact, I'm sure that many of these consultants that they're hiring, we actually have teachers that can actually do some of that work. But I acknowledge that we do need consultants. But again, the explosion of money being poured into consultancy lately is alarming for us as an association. I'm informed, and I know I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, that it's amounting to, I think, $4 million right now. And I see Dr. Greenberg is disagreeing. I could be wrong with that figure, but it seems still to be quite high. And so we would like that to be addressed as well. Thank you. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. CSEA President Rob Colvin, or somebody filling in for him? No?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's right. They were talking about that last month. Okay, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on agendized or non-agendized items. Do I need to? Okay. Okay. Person wishing to be heard by the board shall first be recognized by the president and shall then proceed to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that the additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. That being said, we have one. Vicki Mueller.
First off, I want to say welcome.
Thank you.
And Carolyn, congratulations. Good to see you back. I just want to come up real quick and just, I took a group of students to the Anti-Stigma Conference. And one of the things that you heard the other students talk about creating a kind and caring campus. And I'm telling you, it impacted all of the students. So we want to start a battle, a district-wide battle of creating kind and caring campus and doing good things across the campus. December 12th, I challenge all of us to pay it forward. So across our district, I would like us to pay it forward. Do one kind deed for somebody on that day, whether it's pay for somebody's groceries, somebody's lunch, a cup of coffee, something. But let's start with us and start creating a kind and caring campus and a kind and caring district. That's all I want to say. Have a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Do you have any more? No more? Okay. Okay. Consent calendar. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ed and Joan. Any questions? Comments?
No questions.
No? Okay. Please vote. Okay, information items. Yeah, you got the email? I don't know, did you? Yeah.
I had inquired about how much we get share from the vending.
Right, and I sent an email out to the governing board. I asked Mr. Newkirk this question. We went out for bid on a vending contract for the vending machines we have in the district, and the company that was selected estimates a lot more, but Mr. Newkirk thinks it'll be somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a year in revenue that we'll collect that'll go into the general fund. It could be more than that, but we want to budget conservatively.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, general function resolution number 14-15, repeal of the reserve cap language. So, do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second.
Okay, Ed and Jose.
Want an explanation?
Yeah, what would you like? Give an explanation
Candace,
on this
do you
one?
want to do that?
Do this, sure. Sure. This is a resolution that CSBA, which your California School Boards organization, is recommending that trustees throughout the state adopt a resolution asking for to be sent to onto the legislatures, essentially repealing the reserve cap language and stating our opposition for, or your opposition rather, for the restrictions that would put on our collective ability to manage the district.
And the idea is that after we came out of the recession, some school districts, even ours, the previous board under previous superintendent, were able to put some money away in the event of a downturn. And sure enough, we had a downturn, and if it had gone away in 2 years, that $6 million would have taken care of us, but it went much longer than that, and further cuts needed to be made. So basically, what California School Boards Association, your organization, is encouraging governing boards to pass a resolution encouraging the governor and the legislature to say, give us the money and let us decide how much money we keep in reserve, that would not be mandated by the state.
And one of the reasons, if I could just add one more thing, why, I mean, we're in the period of local control. And so each district is different. You're going to hear presentations tonight about where we are in the final planning stages for 2 new schools. We know how expensive it is to open 2 new schools, and we need to begin now saving for those initial supplies and so forth, just like we did when we opened Heritage High School. We kept a special reserve for that. And so, if this were to move all the way forward, that would sort of tie our hands in those sorts of cases. And that's just one example of many.
Any questions at all? No?
No questions.
Discussion? Okay. Go ahead and vote, please. Okay. Okay, ratification of an addendum to multi-year service agreement with Paradigm Healthcare for Medi-Cal administrative activities. Is it funded through the general fund? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Carolyn and then Joan. She was. She just. Are you seconding? Is it Carolyn?
Oh, I did. Sure.
Okay, second from Joan. I'm sorry. She beat her just barely. So.
Okay, Governing Board, we've had a contract with Paradigm for many years. They help us with Medi-Cal billing and really allow us to collect a lot of money. The reason Mr. Agundez left the room is he consults for Paradigm, but we've had a contract with Paradigm before he got on the Governing Board. So this is not a Governing Board member making sure his company gets business. So we thought, as opposed to sitting here and not voting, that it would be better if he left the room. That way, if the board wanted to ask questions, he wouldn't be in an uncomfortable, or you wouldn't be in an uncomfortable position.
Are there any questions?
No questions.
Okay, please vote. Okay, approval of the 2014-15 first interim financial report with a positive certification of the Paris Union High School District's financial condition. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Joan and Ed.
And board, we have just a very brief presentation to overview our financial condition. Mr. Rabing, our Director of Fiscal Services, if you would provide us with that.
You should have that in front of you.
Yes, you do have that in front of you. So I think I only have like 18 slides, so I should be able to go through these fairly quickly. Thank you, President Nelson, Governing Board, as well as the Cabinet, for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak to you regarding our financial status as of right now. We'll be talking through the first interim fiscal report. Within the first interim report, we are looking at our funding source, the local control funding formula that was created and implemented beginning in 2013-14. It was essentially the first change in funding formulas for school districts since 1972. This is where we're moving California into awaiting the funding sources for as a student fund, specific to students, not specific to what has happened in prior years. So in the local control funding formula, we have a couple ways that we're receiving money. We're receiving money with the base grant, and that's the funds that all districts receive. And then we have the supplemental grant. Supplemental grant is provided to address needs for English learners, low income, and foster youth. What you'll notice on this slide is that in the 2013-14, we received our base grant with some supplemental, and there's a gap that within the next 7 years now, we're supposed to be trying to close that gap. It's predicted that we'll close that gap down to fully funded, but as of right now, we're incrementally closing the gap of funding. So as of right now, you'll see that in 13-14 and then again in 14-15, we have a little bit more. We've closed that gap a little bit with regard to local control funding. So with our budget and our MYP assumptions, We're using a few different things to be able to continue to write the budget as well as our multi-year projections. The percentage provided by the local control funding formula, the COLA, we have the CalSTRS rates and the CalPERS rates. We get these rates both from the government as well as some recommendations from School Services of California. What we should notice right now is that once we get to the governor's proposal in January, we might have different information with regard to GAP, and that might affect what we're doing for our next year.
Yeah, Mr. Rabing, I think it's really important for everybody to see the CalSTRS rate. That's not what the employee's paying. That's what the district's paying. As employees, we are paying more. That's going up too. But if you look at the district rate, and if you carried it out even further, it's going to be at 18%. And right now, there's no funding source, meaning the money we're getting is great from LCFF. That's going up. But as you can see, teachers and certificated administrators, that CalSTRS rate is going up, and the district's going to have to find the resources to pay for it. We're part of a statewide coalition that's just forming on that. They've asked me to be a board member statewide on that to advocate to the legislature that you aren't really giving us more money if you're taking money away. So what you need to do is you need to fully fund separately the CalSTRS increases so that the school district can actually get that rate to improve programs and salaries and the things that we need to do.
So the first interim changes since budget will be presented to you at the end of the last school year. We have that increase to the LCFF GAP funding from the original January budget through what happened when we approved the May revise. We have changes to CalSTRS rates from the May revise. We have additional one-time dollars that were mandated for programs to be used to continue implementation of Common Core. We have an increase to student enrollment for this year, which in turn had also a requirement to, or need to add additional sections for the staffing allocations. And then we also have a reduction in the SELPA funding, which increased, or which resulted in an increase of the contribution to special ed. What I have for you is the unrestricted general fund summary. What I do want to point out in this summary is that in the adopted budget, we are looking at having an increase to our ending fund balance. At this point, with some of the changes, at this point we do show a decrease, so we are deficit spending in this year and ongoing years. So what we have here, when we started with an ending fund balance, we're working through a decrease to that ending fund balance. So if we started with 6% at the end of this year is what's projected, we're dropping down to 5.38%, down to 4% of that. So our next steps, what we're asking is to provide us the positive certification recommendation. Again, this certifies that based on our current projections, the district will meet the financial obligation. We're looking for January's governor releasing his budget to be able to make any changes. We also, with those changes, are looking at continued conversations regarding budget priorities for the 15-16 school year and beyond. Such as textbooks. That's something that was addressed in previous meetings. We are looking at how we're going to be spending the Common Core mandated costs of one-time dollars. We also have other priorities. In the initial slide, it described that with the local control funding formula, we also have an LCAP plan that the district creates. So that plan also identifies some of the priorities as a district, things that we're going to be spending money on. I know the last board meeting we had counselors presenting, and that was part of a conversation as well. So those may be some of the priorities that we have to identify that would go into our budget as we continue to plan. So our second interim report will be revised and brought back to you guys in March. Is there any questions? Okay, guys. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Raby. Any discussion, questions? No? Okay, please vote. Okay, information item, new course, fitness walking.
Yeah, I want to know when that's being offered because I want to go out and do that. That sounds like a great class. It's going to be an elective governing board, and there may be staff members out there outnumbering students. But that's a new course.
Get that heart rate up. Also, new courses, Performing Arts 1. And Advanced Dance, Theory and Practicum.
And to answer Mrs. Twyman's question, those two classes, Performing Arts 1 and Advanced Dance, are A through G compliant. And so and we're going to start putting that on every new course we bring on the front sheet so you can see right up front. It does say it if you look into the course, but if you just look at the agenda item, it'll now say it's A through G or it's not.
Okay. Program Improvement Year 3, Evidence of Progress. Information item.
No report on that.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, still waiting. There we go. Math and integrated math report.
Yes, I'm very happy to finally answer Mrs. Cooley's concern that we have a presentation. It's been a tumultuous couple of years for math teachers. We went Common Core, integrated math, and of course when you add in Chromebooks and technology, it's been a tough transition. But we have Grant Bennett, who taught math in this district before becoming an administrator, math teacher extraordinaire, and Tosa Jedediah is here, Butler, and luckily we got Princess Choi. So we got math teachers, and Mr. Rabing, you taught math, and so gosh, we're full of math teachers. So, and obviously, what we want to hear, and I know you've got a presentation, and then you'll answer questions, is, obviously we know there's a lot of change in the air, and change is difficult, and how we're dealing with that, how we're supporting math teachers. So, gentlemen, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, thank you, President Nelson. Thank you for the opportunity, Board of Trustees and Cabinet. We're happy to be here tonight to talk about, I know Ms. Cooley had some questions previously. We want to make sure we can try to get information out to you to maybe clear up some of the misconceptions and some of the things that are going on. Our district made a huge choice over 2 years ago now to go with integrated math instead of the traditional algebra, geometry, algebra 2. So that was one huge shift that we were looking at. Then the other one was with Common Core. And really, I think the change to integrated is going to be beneficial because everybody had to change. If we stayed traditional algebra, geometry, algebra 2, people could stay in their comfort zone and not take those next steps that Common Core is asking them to do. With changing to integrated, this is making everybody change. It's not, I'm the expert algebra 2 teacher and I know how to teach it. It's now we're all moving forward with this new curriculum. So I think in the long run it's going to be a positive change. Not saying there haven't been challenges along the way. There's been a lot of challenges as we've gone through this, developing curriculum, working with teachers to learn the new curriculum, looking at materials to use. We're currently still using our old textbooks, and Jedediah has done a great job of correlating what was in the old textbook with the new Common Core standards to make sure that we're covering what we want to cover. So that's kind of an overview of where we are going. So we've switched to integrated, and I'm going to let Jed's going to jump in and push me out of the way. No, I'm going to let Jed talk about this, and I want to really thank Jed for coming because he was kind of on his sick bed all day, laying in bed, and he still came out here tonight as a trooper. So we appreciate him being here. So Jed.
No problem. Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for letting us get some more information out to you, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions as well. First of all, when we say integrated math, there's often a confusion with, okay, what's that? So it's like both, or I don't get it, is like the most common response we would get from even math teachers that haven't been in the curriculum before. What I've done for the next couple of slides is try to simplify it as much as possible, and even then I know it's not really simplified, so I'm going to annotate that with some of my own comments to try and make it more realistic and tangible for you. So first, Integrated 1. This would be the entry-level math course. A lot of people, if you were to try and relate this to something you could be familiar with, it would parallel Algebra 1 as far as skill level and conceptual understanding. However, the content that's within it is definitely different than you would have seen before. One of the big shifts you'll see once a student enters high school, whether they're taking Algebra 1 or Integrated Math 1, is they take numerical manipulation, learning their number facts, their multiplication tables, their addition facts, subtraction, all that stuff, and then expanding it into an algebraic manipulation. So 3 plus what equals 5, that plus what, and really trying to articulate that into something that's a concrete skill for the student, which is weird because we talk about an abstract concept as a concrete skill, and that's where everybody really struggles with that. One thing that Grant likes to have me show other people, it's just an activity, but I'll describe it to you, and it really plays to that point, is imagine that we had 4 chairs out here and we wanted to equally space them across the room. And what would you need to go about doing that? And then let's say you wanted to take that pattern of what you did and expand it as a procedure to do for any size room and any size chair and any number of chairs. And when you start doing things like that where you develop a procedure and an algorithm, that's when you bridge over into the abstract part of it, where it's not just this one specific instance, but it's more a general rule. And with the Hour of Code and other things that students have been doing, it's really playing to that type of skill, where you're learning to annotate your procedures, list them, and then apply them into new situations. So that's kind of that first point, and that's the long one. The rest I'm going to race through, but that's the big one. Functions, which is basically the idea of that mathematical relationship and how it looks. Students start getting more into detail with describing them and then creating them, like an equation kind of thing. Linear relationships, which just means a pattern that's consistent and doesn't change over time. It's Monday, so we're going to add one day, and tomorrow will be Tuesday. It's not going to be Wednesday. The pattern is always the same. Linear modeling is taking a realistic situation. I just did one example of this. I'll comment on it later, where students take data from something that happened, then apply the pattern that they're learning from that data. The way that you guys would just look at statistics, somebody's got to figure out those patterns. We're introducing those concepts to students earlier now, where they're looking for the patterns, annotating them, and trying to describe the patterns themselves. Congruence and rigid motion, that's probably the hardest one. I'm probably the only one in here that really gets it like at its depth, and that's okay with me. But the general idea is, how could you describe to me that that tile is the same as that tile right there? And the easiest way would be to measure it. But now we're showing students that you don't always have to measure it. If you could take that tile out, move it, which in math, whenever we call movement, it'd be a translation, and place it overlapping the other tile. If you saw them overlap perfectly, that's rigid motion, because nothing changed when you moved it. It was the same tile. It didn't grow or shrink, if that makes any sense. Measurement on a grid. So students put things on a graph, but now measuring that and developing rules for measuring that. The one formula everybody remembers from their high school years tends to be Pythagorean theorem, and that's where that comes into play. That's Math 1, and I hope I didn't confuse you too much. Math 2, it's mostly a lot of the same stuff, with you add in similarity and proportion, which is things growing or shrinking. Think scaling a recipe, doing a scale model. Same idea there. Probability comes into play. Quadratic functions is one way that relates to common stuff that we would see is just gravity. Gravity pulls with an accelerating force, and when things accelerate, over time, not just go the same speed, but you actually accelerate, that's when you tend to pull in things like a quadratic relationship. So it's changing, it's not constant in its pattern. It's a changing pattern that gets faster and faster or slower and slower. And more than one way. This is like the big thing, the big hot topic, like, oh, it's the new math, and like, I don't want to do it those ways. I want to just do it the one way that I learned. And you guys have probably heard some of this throughout your Facebook culture, TV culture. I even saw it on Jeopardy the other night, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. But traditionally, math has always been more than one way. Now it's just expected to be more than one way. And it's not just a good practice, it's the standard practice. So things like this, where you're seeing a step-by-step equation, and we would tell the students, oh, you're going to distribute, combine like terms, isolate the variable, and simplify. That's a pretty standard algorithm. But instead, now they're going to do that in the top left there, but they're also going to visualize those relationships with that middle picture that's being animated there. They're going to do a numeric table that shows the relationship growing and how as the two items get closer to each other, so as that dot gets closer to the line. And then you see words to go with it that are related. Kelly says that we should have used add, not subtract, to combine like terms in line 2, and he found 3x 51, x equals 17. How would you respond to this? It's open-ended. It asks the students to do the most challenging standard for math practice. There's 8 of them, and this one is the most challenging just because it's not common. Now it should be because it's Common Core. It's construct viable arguments and critique the arguments of others, or critique the reasoning of others. That is the one standard for math practice that actually overlaps between English language arts, math, and the next generation science standards. That one standard is in there for all 3. And that's where you see it in that final note there. Am I going too fast?
Well, I get that.
Sure.
It's causing us to think out of the box.
Sure.
You know, originally all I really wanted was a passing rate for the Algebra 1 and the Math 1 as compared with last year. That was my only question to Dr. Greenberg, was that one question. So,
some of that information when we were doing Algebra 1.
I mean, I hope our architects don't have Common Core math.
Our failure rate in Math 1 right now is about 4% higher than it was in Algebra 1. But one of the key things is we have 900 more kids in Integrated 1 than we had Algebra 1 at that time. So we're pushing more kids to a higher level quicker.
But are they getting it? I mean, I want the data. I want passing failure. I want to know how many kids are failing the Integrated Math 1, or however I'm asking it, and compared to last year. And I don't know. I just...
That's what I was saying. It's about 4% more failing Integrated 1 right now than they were when we had Algebra 1.
But there's 900 more students in
more students in the program than we had previously because we don't offer a lot of the lower level classes. We're trying to push the kids to a higher level, so we do have a little bit higher.
But they're not getting it.
Yeah, well, you know, this is going to be a transition. I know Dr. Rouse taught math too. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to know that nationwide we've upped the rigor. We have upped the rigor, not just in math and language arts, but it's going to be coming to social studies and science as well. And that's a good thing because but in the meantime, it's going to be a tough transition until some of those elementary and middle school kids come to high school and already are doing some of these things differently.
This next slide will be a help to our teachers too because we have been using the old materials and they're not really Common Core materials. They're the old standards.
Mr. Bennett, I have some questions about the implementation, but I just want to follow up on Ms. Cooley's question. You mentioned 4% higher rate, right? But is that last year we had 20% failing rate, this year 24? Because it's a big difference. Last year we had 80, now we have 84. So just to have an idea, in what range are we talking about that percent?
Failure rate last year was about 26%.
Oh, okay.
In algebra, in the last time we had algebra, and it was about 30%.
Oh, okay. Now we have a great idea.
Or this year. Oh.
This year 30.
And I would even add
limits.
to that too. Like one of the things that when you think about the algebra courses that we previously had, we had Algebra 1, and then one of the reasons we have the increase is we used to also have Algebra 1A and Algebra 1B, which was like a slower paced version of that course where it was the 1-year course taken over 2 years. And we haven't gotten to the point where we have adjusted the Integrated Math 1 course for differentiating that pace as well. That's in the plans, but you can't do both at the same time because we're still trying to settle on the first course.
And by the time the pendulum gets to that point, we will pick a new topic, and it'll come back that way, and we'll throw more money at it.
Well, this is a nationwide thing, Mrs. Cooley, and 40 states have signed up. So, I mean, we here's the thing. Our kids are going to be tested using Common Core. So, I mean, if we want, I know there's a guy going around saying Common Core is crazy, and people have the right to a different opinion on it. But the fact of the matter is the state of California is expecting us to teach Common Core, to have students learn Common Core and be tested in Common Core. So it's kind of like I appreciate your opinion, but I guess whether our opinions really don't matter. At this point, we need to, and it is increasing the rigor, and I'm really worried in the spring, so is every superintendent in the state, that when the scores come out, they're not going to be good because in general, we're seeing the kids are having to now think instead of just memorize.
And the kids that were taught, that are going to be taken, were taught for 9 or 10 years one way, under one set of standards. And now all of a sudden we're throwing into something new, expecting them to jump to that top level right away. And it's going to take time.
Oh, yeah, I understand that.
But what I did want to share about the textbook evaluation process, because Jen's done a great job, because we were looking at, a couple years ago when we first started, we looked at integrated materials that were available, and they just put Common Core on an old book, and they had garbage. Now they've done a much better job, the publishers coming up with materials, and Jen did an exhaustive process in looking at these materials. And I'll let you explain that a little bit.
To start out, even as early as January this year, there just wasn't much available. And then come about summer, things were starting to appear more. And around September, we were able to get about 7 fully complete curriculums that had Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3 available for us. And even if we were in the Geometry Algebra 2, it would have been about the same number of publishers that were ready with items that we could look at. So from those 7 publishers, and most of them, they do cover the major ones as well as a few emerging ones. We have Houghton Mifflin in that group. Pearson represented a couple of those textbooks. McGraw-Hill with their newer materials, not their older ones, which is very different. Like if you were to compare it to an old McGraw-Hill book, you could not, if you had the name taken off, you would never guess. We had Carnegie, which is related to Carnegie Mellon, Mathematics Vision Project out of Utah, Integrated Math Program out of Florida, College Preparatory Mathematics, CPM, which has been there as well, and they updated their materials. We went through using the achieve.org equip rubric. It's a state-recommended rubric. They've actually done trainings locally in our region that I wasn't able to get to, but I caught myself up on how to do their things and contacted people that I needed to learn how to use the rubric. And then I trained lead teachers from each of the sites while we had the pull-out days and the after-school meetings to go through the rubric. The rubric basically looks at 4 dimensions: alignment, key shifts, supplemental supports, and assessment. And alignment is it aligned to the current material and the current expectations and standards? And if it fails that dimension on the first round, then you stop right there. And I would say probably about a third of them actually failed that early. Even though they said, we're Common Core and we're ready to go, they still failed on when we looked in depth through the rubric. The teachers went through these. We had by far a leader emerge out of about a 3 to 5 week process if you include the holiday break for Thanksgiving. But even though we had that one leader, we wanted to do a final presentation between them and what our second choice would have been. We just completed that on Monday. And now we have a business meeting, I guess you would call it, with the leading publisher this coming Monday. So we've made a lot of strides in this, and a lot of teachers, after the final presentation from that leading publisher, they said thank you to Grant and I and other people in the room, just saying, we really appreciate that you guys have gone through this. We feel confident now, and there's a lot more positive outlook. We're looking to try and pilot as early as January, so right around the corner. Working hard, trying to catch back up with everything. And hopefully that will address some of that preparedness and that comfort where the teacher isn't trying to do it all, because that kind of has been how it was for the last couple of years, is that it was just laid on the teacher. I was one of those teachers in the classroom last year, and I grabbed it and wrote it really hard, and I loved it, but I know a lot of people didn't. So we're reaching out and trying to give them the support they need. Some activities, and our code was already mentioned. We work closely with Josh Kitzero. He's a consultant from MSJC on STEM activities, and he helps me plan some of this stuff. The quadratic catapult was our big one. We have a couple more coming up next semester for Math 1 and Math 2. The quadratic catapult is just launch a catapult, or launch a ping pong ball using a Lego built catapult robot. We processed, I want to say, about over 1,000 students. All three comprehensive high schools, Paris High twice. And basically what it was is we had a gym or a large open space for the day, and we would have 3 to 4, or actually sometimes as many as 5 periods in there at one time doing the activity. They got a lot out of it. They were able to relate it to the quadratic relationships they were learning in their classes.
And what kind of activity?
So the idea was they were looking to model that pattern with the flight of the ball, looking for the maximum height that it went to and the furthest height, with the eventual goal that once they could make a general rule for that pattern, then the final activity or the final challenge was we had them place the catapult on a raised level, and they had to launch it into a basket on the ground, which isn't the same as they were doing all the other data on the ground. And that was giving them a modeled pattern, and then they would fit an equation to that, and then they would have to adapt the equation or adjust the equation for the raised platform to land into a basket. If you were thinking like a military application, that's looking at the flight path or any type of projectile path, but it's not always going to be in the same situation, so you have to be able to program that to be flexible for different heights and different distances.
There's a way of modeling quadratic type equations using a real life model, which is more common for using applications of what they're doing rather than just the algorithm. How do you find the vertex of the parabola?
They had to develop the equation themselves. It's not like they didn't know it was quadratic. That was told to them, and they were given some parameters. But in past, you would just be given, here's an equation, here's some numbers, plug them in, and tell me that you learned something, and they didn't really learn much. Another follow-up we did with it was, let's say that a person had shot it off a ledge and it fell short. Would you tell them to raise or lower the platform in order to reach the basket? And that has to do with function transformation, and when you move an equation around on a graph, how do the numbers relate to that movement? So that was kind of something that was helpful there.
You lost Joan and I at catapult and robot. But no, I'm really impressed with that and with what you're doing.
The number one comment from the teachers was, when are we going to do this again? So in between all the textbook planning, it's for early next semester is the next plan. I just I tend to do a dry run with one teacher to kind of get the kinks out before I go to like 5 teachers at a time. Because 5 teachers, 5 classrooms in one building, that's...
And my question, Grant, where did you find this guy? He's great. He's great. Yeah.
I think Brian hired him at Paloma Valley last year as a teacher, and then I had the math TOSA job open, and Jed applied, he came in, and the one thing I always tell people, he told me, he says, if you want to stay the same and keep doing status quo, don't hire me. If you want to change, I'm the person for it. Yeah.
Jed, where'd you go to college at?
Point Loma Nazarene.
Thank you very much.
But when I went there, we were the Sea Lions, not the Crusaders. We had to change that. Tech in the classroom, you guys have heard all about this, but there's just more and more of it coming out. One thing I'm trying to do is this haiku page where it says more student tools. Teachers can tell students, like, yeah, go find the tools. It's out there. But students don't have that gusto or necessarily that expert background to know where to look. So I put together some for them, so they can find all the graphing calculator tools, the dynamic visualizations, the reference tools, all that's there with little blurbs explaining how to use them. So if you have kids that need some math tools, feel free to take that. I'm sure we can email this to you or share it with you as well. This is, I think, the final. So if there's additional questions, I don't want to keep everybody here that long.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is this working with our feeder schools?
Yeah.
Last year, the feeder schools offered just a traditional program up through Algebra 1. This year, they're not offering not even offering Algebra 1. The highest class they're offering is 8th grade Common Core Math. So these kids will now come in and be ready for our integrated program to start in there. And we're going to be creating a diagnostic that we'll give to all the 8th graders as they come in to decide which kids need intervention, which kids need the acceleration, because they're going to be those kids that are going to want to go faster. So we're going to build our program to meet the acceleration needs and how to help remediate the kids that are deficient in their math abilities.
So is it going to be 1, 2, and 3?
1, 2, and 3. Next year we'll bring in integrated 3. It'll replace Algebra 2 next year, because we don't want to change it in the middle of the cycle, so we're building it in a year at a time.
And will they all be UC approved then?
They already are. Fred wrote them.
Yeah, so they'd be, I know that sounds familiar, but so is it going to be automatically 1, 2, and 3, like from freshmen?
Yes. Yeah, they'll start in 1. And the middle schools have talked about possibly starting some integrated, but if they're going to offer an acceleration, they're going to do integrated also, like we're doing at both Menifee, Romoland, and I'm not sure about Newview. I haven't talked to them at Pinacati also.
Yeah, this would help with the unification too.
Yeah. And I have had talks with Karen and Dennis Regis, who's the math advisor down in Menifee. We've met and worked together on things.
So after integration, what's the highest level? You guys still offer pre-calculus and calculus, and that would not be included with the integration, or would it?
Go ahead. You want to jump in?
So to see like what swaps out for what, it's the Algebra 1, Geometry Algebra 2 becomes Math 1, 2, 3. Okay. Everything else that was there before, stats, AP stats, we got a trig class over at Heritage, pre-calc, all that stuff, AP Calc, BC, that's still there.
It's just their ability. If they're at the ability to do it, we'll have it for them.
They call those, if you were to look those up in the standards from the state, they call those fourth-year courses, which a student might be taking in their third year, but they call it the fourth-year course.
Any questions for us?
Well, then you're trying to teach all this to students with 35, 37 in the classroom. And say 10, that is a low estimate of students aren't paying any attention and messing around. It just blows my mind as to how it's ever going to get off the ground when you have severe discipline problems in the classroom while you're trying to go through all that. I'm just focused on you 100%. And I know students, well, I was, and I know students are not doing that completely. At least they've changed since my day.
Well, there's two different issues which you were talking about, Ms. Cooley, is you have the student discipline and the issues of being can'ts on target for learning, and the curriculum. We feel like the curriculum's in a place, and especially as we look towards the new textbooks, that it's going to be solid and be able to help the kids be successful. Now, there's a different story on getting the kids that aren't trying to get on board and be part of it. That's another part of the motivational part of teaching and learning.
Well, you've done a really good job.
Well, and one of the ways that we're trying to support even that engagement issue is these large group activities. where we can even hopefully get to the point where we can do a couple of semester, if not free, on a large scale, where they can say, oh yeah, we're going to do that activity where this is helping support that. So then that's almost a carrot on the end of the stick.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Good job.
Some information items there. Suspension and expulsion report.
Yeah, we've asked Mr. Newman, our Director of Pupil Services, to give us an update. Mrs. Cooley had asked for this. And just remember, just a reminder to the public that while obviously we punish students for misbehaving, we actually don't use the word punish anymore. We use the word what, Mr. Newman?
Interventions.
Interventions to remediate their behavior. There's a push nationwide for positive behavior intervention strategies, and at some point, the district's going to be accountable through the LCAP plan to reduce suspensions and expulsions. Now, that doesn't mean, obviously, kids who, as you know, sell drugs at school last year in this district. I mean, we're not turning our backs on the serious discipline issues, but the defiance issues that go on in a classroom every day need to be dealt with differently, and they need to be dealt with in a way that keeps kids engaged in school while still being held accountable for their behavior.
The teachers now are having to have more of that. With everything else they have to do,
Right.
now they have, all this to worry about.
Well, let Mr. Newman tell you about the numbers, because I think the numbers will surprise you a bit, Mrs. Cooley.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to say good evening to the board as well as the cabinet. Today I'm just going to do a brief presentation on discipline for our district. Prior to getting there, it's really important to set the context of where we are in terms of discipline, because things have changed from 10 or 15 years ago in terms of discipline. And what's driving that change, we have CalPAS in terms of statewide district data is really analyzed through the Office of Civil Rights as well as the Department of Justice. And this data out of 2009, 2010 really brought about some major changes in terms of legislation, in terms of discipline law, in terms of how we implement discipline at the school site. So when we go into some of the data that they were looking at when the Department, Office of Civil Rights, as well as the Department of Justice got involved, it was the fact that the Office of Civil Rights identified disproportionalities in student data. In particular, 1 out of every 5 African-American student was suspended, and then you can go right down the list in terms of seeing the percentages and the differences that existed in terms of how our current practices, the outcomes in our current practices. And then so we have an African-American student 3 times more likely to be suspended than a Caucasian student. And then here was a big one. Students with disabilities are more likely to be suspended than those without disabilities. So that was a big piece that led to some of the changes in discipline law. The next one we have in terms of outcomes and the specific behaviors that kids were being excluded from school for. So, for instance, in terms of kids being expelled, this is from the state of California. 22% was, possession, use of controlled substance. We have 17% for cause or threaten to cause physical injury. But then we had this one where kids were being expelled for willful defiance, and that was at 12%. And then when we went down to suspensions, when they analyzed the data for suspensions, state of California realized 42% of kids were being suspended for willful defiance. And that was a big issue that came up in terms of trying to define what exactly is willful defiance. Then as well as cause and attempt to threaten to cause physical injury was 23%, 7% for possession, use, or sold a substance. Now, what came out of this was AB 1729. And basically this narrowed the exception for first offense suspensions. And so this particular law, Education Code 48900.5, previously, it said that a student can be suspended for first offense without any other means of correction if the student violated A, B, C, or D, which are basically violence, dangerous weapons, drug sales, or robbery. Kid could be suspended for first offense for that. All other ed codes, you had to provide other means of correction. Now, what was also listed in there, or if a student's presence causes a danger to a person or property or threatens to disrupt the instructional process. This was in previous case law. Now, AB 1729 came in January 2013. This right here has been removed from the Ed Code now. Now on the Ed Code, it says if the pupil presence causes a danger to person. So that's that other exception to first offense offenses in terms of suspensions in the state of California. Now, so the school districts must change their policies, delete references to property, or threats to disrupt the instructional process. This no longer exists in Ed Code. Other means of correction must have been tried and failed before in-school and out-of-school suspensions take place. That means that sites have to be a lot more creative in terms of the first offense. What we do for students has to be intervention supports prior to us suspending a student from school. And so what the law also added in to those recommendations for other means of correction, previously it stated other means of correction but did not list out what specifically those recommendations were. So now added to that law was the specific recommendations, but not limited to these, because sites can also be creative in the interventions that they offer. So for instance, parent conferences, referrals to counselors, student success teams, assessments for special education, community service programs, after-school programs, tiered interventions, restorative justice programs, and pro-social behavior classes. These were some of the lists that were recommended that schools have set up, so when kids are misbehaving, we have very specific tools that we use for kids when they're disrupting the instructional process. Now, what's coming out it's actually January 2015, coming out now, is this issue addressing willful defiance. AB 420 will be a law come January, and basically it will eliminate willful defiance or classroom disruption as a reason to expel a student from school. So that's the first component. The second component to it eliminates willful defiance or classroom disruption as a reason to suspend K-3 students. Now, there was a lot of work done by AXA, CTA, and a lot of different organizations with this particular law, because there was a place that we understood willful defiance, that there were some issues where kids would be suspended at the high school level, because the initial law wanted to remove completely the option to ever suspend a kid for willful defiance. So we know there's an issue. So it remained that there needs to be other means of correction prior to us suspending a kid for willful defiance. It also preserves the ability of teachers to suspend a child from the classroom for willful defiance. Teacher suspensions are still in place in terms of willful defiance. And AB 420 sunsets in the summer of 2018. At that particular time, the thought was that maybe there will be, kind of observe what are the outcomes with these changes in the legislation in order to determine if there needs to be additional changes. Now, in terms of our data, selected data points for referrals, suspensions, and expulsions over the past 3 years, just to see just very quickly in terms of what trends do we see in our data. And so in terms of referrals, you see the trend up here that, 12, 13, we dropped down last year. We had a slight spike in our referrals. In terms of suspensions, we were at 2287, and then over the past few years, we've been seeing a decline as well in terms of our suspensions. And then in terms of expulsions, we see it was 54 here, 26 here. Last year, we were at 57 kids that we expelled inside of our district. As we go into suspension data, and these are specific incidents that have taken place in terms of kind of watching those incidents over the past 3 years. We have for fighting, you see 391 here, and then you see a jump in 12-13. Last year, we see a decline, and there's a couple of issues that we can really, we talk about technology in the classroom, engaging kids outside and inside the classroom, and you see an impact immediately of setting it up on our campuses. Weapons, we see the pattern here. Drug possessions, use of sale, 386, 261. We've identified a decline there. Disruption and defiance, and you'll see the case law taking effect here in terms of the decline that's taking place in terms of suspensions for this. Also, another thing that we had to retrain administrators previously, this is kind of packed in there as well. We were all trained, including me and many of us when we first became administrators. Every time we suspended a kid, we always checked disruption and defiance right next to whatever that suspension was. So we had to retrain all of our administrators to no longer check that box. Let's isolate so we can identify those two suspension points, what we're specifically suspending kids for.
But again, that shows it's all in the back of the teachers. The teachers are the ones that have to, is why in 13-14, why it's come down, because it's all in the back of the teachers. They're supposed to teach class, then they're supposed to leave the classroom and go have a behavior modification meeting with the teacher. So that's 45 minutes or an hour out of the classroom. And then you're teaching all this stuff. It's just mind-boggling. I know we have to do it. We have to do it.
I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot going on in education. I think part of this is really us. I guess it's increasing the importance of that we work a lot closer together in terms of how we support kids. That's administration got to come together. teachers got to come together. We all got to come together and work together in terms of how do we set up a system to support kids when we know that that environment exists on our campuses. And so that's really what the process is.
Mrs. Cooley,
And I've been doing this. Yeah, no doubt about it. But I've been doing this since 1982, suspending kids and expelling them. I was an administrator back in the day. And the idea is when you suspend kids and send them home for defiance, they want to go home. Don't forget Dr. Noguera, who came and spoke. Dr. Noguera said that he met with an assistant principal in New York and sat through a suspension conference. And the assistant principal was going to suspend the student for 3 days. And the student said to the assistant principal, "Why not 5?" And the assistant principal said, "You got it." And when he left, Dr. Noguera said, "What did you just do? Now that student's ability to be successful in the classroom, he's lost 2 days of instruction that he'll never make back." We're not talking about drugs and weapons. We're still the only school district, according to the sheriff in this county, we're the only school district that allows undercover stings going on. And right now, I'm not confirming or denying that we're not doing it today. We did it last year, and we were the only school district in the county that was willing to do it and is still willing to do it. So it's not about not making our campuses safe for the students and the staff. What it's about is best practices. We talk about best practices in teaching math, in teaching language arts. Well, there's best practices in working with students, and some teachers are better at it than others. And what we want to do is not blame the teachers who are struggling with it, but show them other ways of correction and help them work with students and certainly students who are behind academically, they are more of a challenge in the classroom.
I'd like to add just one thing, Mrs. Cooley, when you mentioned, teachers are out there on their own having to deal with the behavior in the class. They are on the front line. And in the last 3 years, that statement was so pronounced in this district. And that's why there's been just really what I call feverish efforts in providing support. A couple slides back, Charles showed up there, student success team. Our SST process and our referral process was very weak. I'm going to be quite honest. We had to really go back and evaluate where do we need to improve our procedures and practices. And that SST process has been very weak and not well-founded, I would say. It just kind of dwindled through the years. It left teachers out there, it left counselors, it left parents and students. So there's been a real renewal or reenactment of policies and procedures on how we can get to the proactive, more preventative mode rather than the reactionary mode in support of teachers and those who are on that front line. So
my hat's off to teachers every time. I'm
Oh,
glad
agreed.
I'm not teaching now, and you have my wholehearted support and blessing. All the teachers everywhere. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're good. All right. So this slide right here is just kind of, in terms of 3 years, where are we at today for this school year in comparison to previous years, so that we can just see in terms of suspension that this year, as we look at fighting on our campuses, this is kind of where we're at. We're kind of matching where we were at last year, so on and so forth. We're working, what we are doing is working with the Sheriff Department. We do different strategies in terms of how can we ensure our campuses are safer. And so, like, for instance, me and Judy met with Sergeant Elwell today. He's coming out to train all of our administrators coming Monday on drugs, gangs in the area, familiarize ourselves with what's going on in our community so that our administrators and our sites are aware of what interventions they need to come to directly support the situations that are going on in the community surrounding our schools. These are some of the next steps that we have in terms of as we move to this new phase and as these changes take place. Number one, we got to train all staff members. And so we got to make sure we're supporting teachers, we're supporting administrators in terms of providing interventions on their school sites. The next one is working collaboratively to create interventions, proactive interventions to support kids and helping them move in the right direction. PBIS, nationwide, positive behavior intervention and supports. Every single district nationwide in the state of California is moving in this direction and moving to a more supportive environment in terms of student discipline. The last thing we want to work as a district on behavior procedure guidelines so that it's very specific and it's consistent throughout our campus. So if there's ever any questions about how we administer discipline, there's this sense that it is consistent in all campuses because it's very clear and consistent to every single administrator and teachers throughout our campus in terms of discipline. And so that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Newman.
Questions?
Mr. Newman, it is really interesting data. It would be would it be possible to get this data by specific comprehensive high schools and desegregated by demographics and special ed, ELs, and all the different elements in order to identify the specific issues at specific schools?
You know, and one thing I want to say in the end is that, you know, obviously everybody has different opinions about what's going on in the country from Ferguson to New York. But when it comes to student data, clearly we, including me, we have failed minority kids in great numbers in this country. We've done it and kind of just said, well, look, we teach the same way. We expect all kids to learn the same way. And we have really failed African American and Hispanic students in this country. And now we're trying to engage them more in school, and we're trying to find restorative justice, ways of keeping them in school and hoping that at some point, Mrs. Cooley, I agree with you, that all of a sudden they say, I see it. We see it at Student of the Month. We see students who say, we had a girl at Paris Lake who said she was dropping out. She was failing. She hated school. And then something clicked. Something happened at Paris Lake. Somebody believed in her, and she turned her whole life around. Now, it's not going to be every student. We know that. But I think the goal is, just like in baseball, you're going to get a base hit every time you go to the plate. You don't think you're going to strike out. Sometimes you do, but you give it your best shot. And I want to commend Mr. Newman, and obviously I want to commend, obviously, the teachers. But I also want to say there's somebody we left out of the equation. At each comprehensive high school and at Pinacati, we pretty much have 2 assistant principals that the bulk of the discipline school-wide falls on their shoulders. I did that for 4 years. It's a tough job. You've done it. You've done it. Those around this table have done it as well. And so I commend the teachers. I know it's not easy with today's kids and with all that we're doing instructionally and with curriculum and the pendulum moving. I hear you loud and clear, Mrs. Cooley. But I also want you to know I still think the hardest job at school is being the assistant principal in charge of discipline, because you have some teachers who want you to hammer the kids harder. You got some teachers who say, no, I didn't want him suspended for 2 days. You have parents who are angry. My kid never did anything wrong. He came home and said he didn't do it. It's a tough job that assistant principals have, and I want to commend the assistant principals we have in the district for doing the great work that they do.
I just have one thing to add. 33 years ago, I did the math. I was a dean of student at a high school. And one of the things that I was very fortunate to have been prior to being a dean of students was I was a counselor. And so, so someone would say, was telling one of my proteges, an assistant principal, you're spending too much time, when I was superintendent in another district, right? You're spending too much time counseling the students. You're not a counselor, was telling the assistant principal. And he related that to me and says, well, what you should have told your principal is that, don't you know that discipline is 95% counseling? See, so you have to spend time speaking to the kids. If you speak to them, if you're a disciplinarian or whatever, the kids will get more trust in what you're saying, and if you believe in them and all that. So I spent a lot of time speaking to students, even though I was a disciplinarian. And guess what? And I did clean house, because there were some people that needed to be somewhere else, not there, somewhere else. And I really enjoyed my time. I thought we had a real success. But again, it's also about classroom management, because I had one of my former wrestling coaches, actually, he would send me a student per semester. When he sent me a student, I knew that he had done his due diligence. So I had constructed this tool so they have a check sheet, so I don't have to, well, what do I do with a student? I don't know what to do. Well, you look at the check sheet. One thing is to call the parent and this and that. I don't know what's happened, but, that still works. So a lot of those interventions existed 33 years ago. And so they should exist now. If they don't exist, we're missing the boat. But again, and then there's some that send me 95 students in a week. So something was wrong with that. And, the teacher just didn't have it. It was in the wrong profession. But again, when someone sent me, like Mr. Wintermote, send me some, I got right to it, because I knew that Mr. Wintermote wouldn't send me just anybody just for yawning in the classroom, and things of that nature. So there's that picture also to draw upon. So anyway, I think using the counselors and also we need to be
Support personnel.
we need to use the support personnel and work it out together. And my teachers were very supportive because they needed some help. And I did all I could to bail them out because sometimes all they needed is the kid out of the classroom for that 1 period or two periods or whatever the case may be. And then I spoke to the student and counseled them, but with a bigger stick, of course, as I was the dean of students. That's all I got to say.
I do want to share just real quick that on Monday, Mr. Newman alluded to this, Sergeant Elwell will be out doing a presentation to all leadership team here in Paris Union High School District on drugs, gangs, and crime in the area. So we're updated. Many of us have said, not that we need to know every single drug, but talk to us, what's happening out there. And so we can have a good articulation with law enforcement, and you are invited. It's
3:30 on Monday?
No, he'll be there at 6, correct? He'll be there at
We'll be in San Francisco.
Oh, that's right.
Board will
I
be
am
able
very
to-
sorry.
But members of the public
So,
are invited to come
you bet.
too.
You
So
bet.
it's not closed, and we'd
Yeah.
like people to know we have a drug problem in America.
We do.
I just want to add, thank you, Mr. Newman. You did an excellent job. And looking at the next steps, I think we are moving in the right direction. As how Mr. Agunde said, developing those relationships and the connections with the students is going to be the key. Training our staff members, creating those interventions. In PBIS, we are going to see excellent results through PBIS and establishing those behaviors. I just want to add something that called my attention about the articulation with law enforcement. Based on the demographics of our district, mostly in this part of what can we say, the north, of Paris, it is important also, and I don't know to what degree we can make and coordinate with the city council or with the city in order to not only have the articulation, but develop those relationships and those connections with the young students now, because that is a big, and I know for a fact that is a big issue. There is no trust. And not only, I'm not talking about what is happening in Ferguson and the other places. Here in Paris, we have that issue of a lack of trust. So if we have that opportunity, and to some degree, we can have that coordination, we can say, and put in the minds of our students and the young kids that we can work together and that they are here to protect us and establish that. I think that would be, in the future, it will help and have greater results.
I also wanted to say this would be a good time to think about lowering class size, if at all possible, because the smaller the class, it's obvious, the better the environment of the class. And also, bear with me for a second. I was writing like crazy. Are counselors doing discipline?
No, but they counsel with students who come back from suspension or sometimes, in a pre-discipline type thing, because, again, sometimes the kids don't trust the assistant principals, but they might listen to the counselor, and if that's what helps change the behavior, that's what we're about.
Okay, one more thing. So are teachers notified in some way that the student is entering their class?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Endangered students, you mean?
Yeah, or how do teachers know who's coming in to their classroom?
Mr. Newman can address notification of students.
First of all, you need to know nobody notifies students better than we do. We're number one in the county. Most districts in this county don't notify. I mean, you can almost get to the point where every single one of our students could be considered dangerous. But certainly we do put out a list. Mr. Newman will tell you about it. And nothing precludes a teacher from saying, students on the list, they seem great in class. What's the problem? And then go in and talk to the assistant principal and find out what their issue is. But I always felt as a assistant principal sending kids to a high school, I didn't want to tell the high school who the troublemakers were. They could read the discipline file in terms of suspensions, but kids need an opportunity to start over and change.
Predispositions.
So we send updates out at the beginning of the semester to all teachers in regards to who's entering their classes. And then we also give them updates throughout the year daily, and if there are class changes. And so that's kind of our normal procedure. We also have on IC, there is a location on Infinite Campus that at any time they can hit a button, and immediately that list will come up to give them an update as well.
Oh, that's great. Also, I'm sorry. Oh, are the classes varied so that they have like some lower level classes and some higher level?
That is one of the biggest problems that principals face is who to put working with the lowest level kids. There are some teachers who feel that I've been here for 20 years, I teach AP, that's what I teach, I've been here the longest, that's my claim to fame, and they're really good teachers. And then sometimes we have really, really talented teachers who are good working with at-risk kids who would like to get a chance maybe to take to teach a more advanced class. So Dr. Rouse knows because he makes a master schedule for teachers. It's difficult. We had one of our best math teachers teaches in this district. I won't say which school. I think everybody probably knows who I'm talking about. Fabulous. He went to the school. He was a star quarterback there. He's a great math teacher there, and he teaches AP Calculus. And a couple of years ago, the principal, Mr. Morris at the time, said, I really need you to teach a couple algebra classes. Well, he didn't want to do that. He likes working with calculus kids. Well, he took algebra, and who do you think had the highest algebra test scores at that school? That teacher. So, Mrs. Twyman, to answer your question, I think it's a dilemma for principals, but we've given them the charge that the best teachers need to work with the most at-risk students. And that sometimes is uncomfortable for a teacher who's taught higher level classes and now suddenly facing a different set of students with different needs. And yet we have an obligation. I don't want to say the top kids will learn in spite of us, but when I subbed calculus at Paris High School, those kids were teaching each other because they knew I didn't know calculus. But the kids on the bottom need the best teachers, and we need to change that paradigm in public education in high schools and middle schools so that people don't say, I've been here the longest, I'm a great teacher, and I get to tell the principal what I teach. I mean, I understand how teachers feel in that regard, but clearly the administrator has that difficult task of saying, I don't want to make anybody mad, yet I also want to see the kids on the bottom go up.
Right. I know.
Who doesn't? But that doesn't mean you pile it on
I agree.
good teachers. Just, I mean, what does that do to the psyche of the teacher? Oh, well, maybe I better not do so good. Maybe if I lower my standards a little bit, I won't get.
Good point.
I mean,
we try to vary. I mean, obviously,
Well, the problem is that the pendulum was way over to one side or the other, where the teachers that were underperforming, you give to the students that are underperforming, and that's what it is. We need a balance. It's not all one way or the other.
It's also extremely stressful. I mean, if you're in a classroom all day with lower level students, it's really tough.
So what you're recommending is what we'd like to see is a more balanced approach, where if you're a great teacher, like the teacher I described, even though he could clearly teach calculus all day, and he may be the most qualified teacher to do it, I think he needs to maybe pick up an algebra class or two so that the person who's not a calculus teacher doesn't get all the low classes.
or suffer burnout.
Right.
I mean, just my opinion, what Common Core, I believe, has caused is for all our good teachers to try to bail out and go into another profession. I mean, I just see it happening all over. Well, I mean, they have to have jobs. People have to eat. You have to have jobs. So I don't want to talk anymore. Go ahead.
That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't mean to be so hard on you.
I know we've been here for 2.5 hours. Why don't we take a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll come back. We have the middle school and the high school to deal with as well. So. We'll start again at 7:40.
Debe conocer a sus hijas.
Sí, venga para acá.